This is Morgan Hazelwood, back again with more writing tips and writerly musings. Today, I'm here to share with you warning signs for new and independent authors, a Baltagon 55 panel. You can find the panel in full on the Baltimore Sci-Fi YouTube channel. The panelists were D.H. Aire, Alex Shvartsman, Anna Kashina, and Angela Yuriko Smith, with Joshua Bilmes as moderator. The description of the panel was as follows. It's a jungle out there for new writers. Do you know the difference between a real publisher and a vanity press? What kind of scams are currently circulating? What rights are you giving away when you sign that contract or even enter that contest? Panelists will give advice on how to navigate these and other pitfalls and give information on resources and communities that can help you out. First up, let's talk about these things to watch out for. Number 1, calls for submissions where the so-called publishers exist to make money from the hopeful author. Ways they do that usually involve fees such as submission fees, while occasionally legitimate in literary fiction, are not legitimate in genre fiction like science fiction and fantasy. Marketing kick-ins from all of the authors involved in the anthology. Fees in general, basically. Second thing to watch out for, contracts where the rights do not revert back. Especially in short story publication, they shouldn't be hanging on to those forever. Third thing to watch out for are contracts that claim all rights, even for formats that the publisher has no interest in doing, other languages, audio, film, etc. Fourth thing to watch out for, contracts that claim rights to all the characters. The exception to this is, of course, if the story is set in someone else's world or universe, those characters are obviously only on loan. And number 5, publishing houses that offer under pro rates. While it's good for your ego, it will do nothing for your career. Anecdotally, a contract lawyer unfamiliar with the fiction market is often the worst offender, trying to gobble up all the potential rights, especially for short stories where the payout is usually under $400. You can find them asking for a lot more rights-wise than they should. So let's talk real quick about what should be in a short story contract. While agents are very helpful for novelists and are most helpful when dealing with publishers, short story authors don't usually need one. Unlike novels or short story contracts that can be upwards of 20,000 words, a short story contract is typically 2 to 3 pages. As a note, the current pro rate for science fiction and fantasy stories is 8 cents per word. So the 4 things you really need to look for in a short story contract are, first off, they're probably going to ask for first rights or reprint rights if it's already been published. Secondly, these rights are usually exclusive for 1 year, maybe 18 months, maybe 2 years, but then they should revert back. Third, only claiming rights in formats that the story will actively be published in, i.e. English, print, and maybe audio are, for most of my viewers, what you're going to be looking for. And number 4, obviously, a reversion clause if the piece ends up not getting published, so it just doesn't hang out in limbo. Do note, there is a reprint market, so you can sell a short story more than once to multiple magazines and anthologies and such, as long as the rights have reverted by that point. So, what of course is a warning panel without hearing all the nitty-gritty horror stories and near misses? While some publishers can be malicious, let's not scare you entirely. Most are just using a boilerplate contract they found online, or figure they can't get rights they don't ask for, so may ask for more than they need. The good thing is legitimate markets won't object if you push back. And if they do, they're either frauds in the first place or you've got a lovely story that many publishers in the market would enjoy. So let's get into the nitty-gritty stories. D.H. Aire had a small anthology try to have him sign away his rights for his characters in perpetuity. He struck out that line and sent it back. The publisher protested it was a boilerplate contract, and then responded like an hour later when all but 2 of the authors withdrew from the anthology. The publisher apologized, sent out a reworded contract without the offending clause. Angela Yuriko Smith had a publisher that never gave her a cent after the initial payment, and then they went out of business. And like a year later, she found them selling their leftover merchandise at fairs, etc., without even pretending to give her a cut. When pointed out, they let the rights revert without an argument and stopped selling work they didn't own rights to. Anna Kashina had a predatory agent find out she had a publisher and offer to represent her, and later tried to publish some of her work with his name on it. One of the Panelists writer friends sold a trilogy and never saw a cent. The small publisher charged every convention room, meal, and travel charge against her royalties. When the rights reverted, another publisher snatched up the well-selling story, and she saw her first royalty check within a month. Angela Yuriko Smith has a photographer friend who had been published as a photographer on her bucket list, and so signed a contract that had no royalties the first year and kept all rights to photography in that geographic area, i.e. the region in which her friend lived, forever. She couldn't sell it to anyone else. Her friend shrugged at the restrictions because it was only 1 book. 3 books with the same publisher later. All she can do is shake her head at her friend and the contract. Another writer friend of the Panelists sold a short story to the Star Wars anthology, or one of them. The contract stated that all of the writer's characters were property of Lucasfilms, and didn't bother to limit that restriction to characters in the story. When the friend pushed back, the publisher said that George insisted the clause be in there, but not that authors accept the clause. So just cross out that line and the contract would be accepted. So they did. A few closing thoughts and references. There are some handy websites for finding markets and researching their legitimacy. I've mentioned the submission grinder before. You can Google that, or you can find it at thegrinder with an ER .diabolicalplots.com. We've mentioned Writers Beware that watches out for predatory companies, and you can find that at www.sfwa.org/other-resources/for-authors/writer-beware. Another site to find markets is Ralan.com, RALAN.com. And on Facebook, there is an open call group. If you just search open call science fiction fantasy, it should show up in your search results. A few other closing thoughts from the panelists were: don't fear rejection letters. Publishers have limited space, certain themes, and expectations. A rejection is not necessarily a statement on the quality of your work, just its fit in that particular issue of that particular publication. If you have a contract concern, ask twice. Some publishers will try to brush aside what they see as token protest, but will acquiesce to a second request. A third ask, though, requires a lot of justification. And finally, don't undersell yourself. I know all of them out there, all the panelists and the agents on the panel know how much unpublished authors just want to be published, just want that validation. But don't let the offer of a contract blind you from the realities of it. Let me know if you have any good resources for finding markets or keeping an eye out on potentially less than above the board agents and publishers.
And that's all for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, hit that subscribe button and share it with all your friends. It goes a long way towards helping people find me. And I'll be back again next Monday with more writing tips and writerly musings. Bye-bye.